Morning, everyone. Before we officially begin, I just wanted to let everybody know that the mics cannot be muted, so they will all be on, so any conversations, any comments you have will be heard and recorded for posterity. The time now is 9:04. It's Friday, May 16th, 2025, and I call this meeting of the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board to order. We will start with the pledges of allegiance, and I will lead us today.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Agenda item number 2 is discussion and possible action to excuse any board member absences. Ms. Sprinkle and Mr. Eichelberger are absent, having given sufficient notice, so I would request a motion that we excuse both of their absences.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Bolton.
I move that the absences are excused.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bolton and a second by Ms. Reed Lynch. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 3 is our opening remarks from the chair. So we will do a couple of housekeeping items at the very beginning. To let everyone know, we are going to move agenda item number 17 to before agenda items number 11 and 12. And we will move agenda number 18 to go with agenda item number 7. That is the budget discussion, and we will do that when we talk about the budget committee notes. I would like to note that any visitors that wish to speak must complete a public meetings comment slip outside of the door. I have received one, so you just fill it out and you can give it to anybody over here to my left. First, we wanted to announce that we have had some recent appointments to this board. They are pending Senate confirmation, which is why we still have the same people here that we have had before. Governor Abbott appointed, replacing me as an appraiser member is Mark Luna. He is an appraiser with Valbridge in Lubbock. And we're happy to have somebody represent that part of the state. So we welcome him, pending Senate confirmation again. Clayton Ripley of Austin is replacing Lisa Sprinkle as a public member. He is a member of the Texas Society, among many of his other credentials, he's a member of the Texas Society of Certified Public Accountants, which is always a huge asset to any board. And so we are certainly grateful to the governor's office for getting somebody with that expertise on our board. And Stephanie Robinson, now Dr. Robinson, has been reappointed. Again, this is all pending Senate confirmation, but assuming that they are confirmed, we will see them all here at the August board meeting. Along those same lines, we have to say goodbye to 2 members, me and Lisa Sprinkle. Lisa couldn't be here today, but on behalf of the board, I did want to take this time to thank her for her dedicated service. As her 6-year term comes to a close, her legal expertise certainly was invaluable to our discussions. A lot of times when she would chime in on our discussions, I would think to myself, this is why public members are so crucial to any professional board, because they're bringing a perspective of the public and looking out for all Texans. We certainly appreciate her willingness to volunteer her time and her energy to the committee work. She could, of course, sailed off into retirement, but instead she logged into committee meetings and she flew across the state every few months, and she did that to serve her state of Texas. And so we certainly appreciate that. We have sincere gratitude for her exceptional service and commitment to Texas appraisers and all Texans. We count her as a friend, and we wish her all the best in really actually retiring.
Are you ready for me, Chair?
I'm not, but I don't think that I can avoid it.
Okay. Well, first, a few words about Lisa Sprinkle. I know she's not here today, but she has participated on this board as a very strong voice with a public perspective and with governance experience that has provided great value. I personally have felt very supported by Ms. Sprinkle in her encouragement and in her decision-making, and will miss her voice in this room. We present her today with a flag flown over the Capitol to honor her generous service to TALCB and to the great state of Texas. So we'll make sure to send this to her. Is there anyone else who'd like to say anything about Ms. Sprinkle before we move on?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something. Lisa was part of the education committee, and I was chair for a while, and she was always had very good insights that I definitely didn't, a perspective that I didn't have, and it was always welcome because she would challenge us as a committee on different items that I may not have looked at the same as an appraiser on the education side. So, yeah, as you said, her insights were invaluable and very helpful to the education committee and to the board in general. So I appreciate her, and we'll miss her because we had very good discussions. So, absolutely.
I would like to just add, although I didn't serve on a committee with her, we were both from El Paso, and we flew together. And I ditto what you guys have said, but even more than that, Lisa was a loyal Texan.
Mm-hmm. That's a high compliment.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on.
I'm sorry, I'd like to just say one quick word.
Absolutely.
The thing I always admired about Lisa is that we would have a discussion, and there would be a narrative. It's going along, and she would throw something in from left field and go, wow, we never thought of that. Okay, we need to think about that. And so I always appreciated her. She had a very unique perspective that I think was really helpful to this board.
And I agree with that as well. Lisa and I started at the same time on the board. And so it was so funny because I remember, I think maybe one of our first meetings in workshop or something, she was saying something like, I'm not sure why I'm here, like, I don't know if I have the level of expertise or something to that effect. Whatever the words were, I was like, no, you're here to represent that different view, that different perspective. Like, that's why you're here. And she did not let us down at all. She absolutely brought that different perspective to the conversation every time. And again, I echo what everyone else is saying. It was things like, we didn't think about it that way, but it made great change for Texans, great change for the agency. I'm going to miss her in the morning, walking from the hotel to the meetings, for our board meetings. But wherever she decides to go, retirement or elsewhere, she's going to be awesome. And but thank you, Lisa. I hope you're listening. Thank you for everything. You have been amazing. So thank you.
All right, moving on to what I promised to be a very short thank you to our chair, but it might be the only time I've lied because I can't promise it because you also may have some things to say. When the governor appointed Chair Oates to this post, she was given a task, and that task required a lot of strength, leadership, and wisdom to complete. The chair has studied, pored over our materials, pored over our website, asked hard questions, and she did not accept the status quo. And she has led this board, I know you will agree, into stability, and she has empowered staff to create an efficient and customer-focused agency, the one that we see today. Her great efforts made a monumental difference. Chair Oates, I'm grateful for your belief in me and for your patience as we came along with you, and for your diligence in asking those hard questions and for making us all better. You have been kind and supportive, and a wonderful leader to this board. It's been a pleasure to work with you and for you, and we have also flown a flag over the Capitol for you as a small token of our appreciation. So I'll hand that to you while someone else comes down to say a few other words.
Martha Gale. Thank you. Oh,
Well
hang it
said,
where my kids
Chelsea.
can see it. I know I'm in charge of somebody.
Sarah has been good to the Texas Appraiser Licensing and Certification Board. With clear vision, she saw changes that needed to be made. With the board and staff, she made those changes. All I have to say is today, it's a great day to be an appraiser in the state of Texas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha Gale.
I'd like to say something really quick. Or do you want to go ahead and?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to keep this very quick.
Thank you.
I appreciate and thank you for your service. I appreciate your mentoring to me. Learned a lot, and I appreciate your diligence. Here, you have helped to make this a very great agency. Thank you.
And I know I'm hard to forget.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, that's so
I love that. That's great.
All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak before we
Yes.
let the chair move on?
I'm going to be quick, but so Sarah and I also, excuse me, Madam Chair, my apologies. You and I also started together 6 years ago. Look at today. Look at where we were day one. Look at today as an agency. You've really, excuse my language, you've kicked butt, lady. I mean, it's been awesome. Really, think about where we were day one and where you've led us as a board, as a team, our staff. It's incredible. And diligence is a good word. You've read everything. You've combed through everything. From Sunset, the report before we came on board, to where we are today. Seriously, I hope you are incredibly proud of what you've done, because it's been incredible leadership, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, very good. Moving on.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to add, of course, I wasn't here when you first started, but I knew the task in front of you. And I would just like to say that in my time back on the board, dedication is something that comes to my mind when I think of you. I've been on several committees. You've been present at every one of those committee meetings. That's dedication, and I really admire you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. It was
No, not yet.
Good try,
So
though.
it was a very good try. Chair Oates, you brought me on. You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So I was looking for something to better the appraisal profession. And I was looking at many different options, and somehow, some way, you came along and brought me up. And I had no idea what this was, how it was going to impact things, and for some reason, you saw something in me that said, this person can be an asset. It is that kind of scrutiny and diligence, as Mark had said, that signifies your leadership. So I appreciate it, and I thank you for the opportunity you gave me. And I know going forward that there's going to be a lot of time missed by you, because you're just so dedicated on this. So I don't know what you're going to do with your time, but you can sit down here and get credit hours. I mean, that we'll more than welcome, I'm sure. But I thank you. Ms. Sims. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
My turn. So I just really want to thank you. I joined the board during COVID, which was hard enough because we weren't having in-person meetings at the time. You took the time to reach out to me personally and have a long discussion with me about what the board was and kind of what we were tasked with. So I really appreciate you doing that because I also felt a little lost coming in during COVID, not really knowing what to expect, but you made my welcome great, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It certainly was a group effort, and I hope that that my lasting impact is that the last one of you, whoever is the last of you, that we continue to pass on this collaboration with the staff and the board and continue to have a good relationship, because that's the only way that it serves Texas appraisers. And so I hope that continues. I hope that you all make that your mission to continue to do that long after I'm gone, and keep passing it down to the subsequent board members, because I think that would be our lasting legacy as a group. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to agenda item number 4 is general comments from the public, an opportunity for anyone to speak on anything that's not on the agenda today. And we do have a request for public comment from a Hansel Dobbs, an appraiser. I would generally keep it under 5 minutes, but if we have, if you have a lot to say, we're not in a crunch for time. Very good.
I have it all prepared here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Hansel Dobbs. I serve on the Association of Texas Appraisers Board of Directors and chair the ATA Legislative Committee. I'm also a member of the National Association of Appraisers and General Manager of Evaluations at Inspectify, a Seattle-based inspection and real estate underwriting startup. As a second-generation Texas certified residential appraiser, I'm here to ask the board to modernize the way Texas audits experience logs when licensees advance from licensed residential to certified residential, or from certified residential to certified general. The problem. When an appraiser seeks an upgrade, TALCB audits all the logged hours, including those already accepted for their current credential, if the appraiser tries to use those. More often than not, that prior experience from the current license is more than 5 years old, beyond USPAP's retention rule, and those files often no longer exist. To avoid an audit they can't document, many applicants restart a brand new log. For certified residential appraisers aiming for certified general, this means recreating or potentially re-auditing the 1,500 hours of residential work that might have been completed 10 to 20 years ago. I know appraisers who abandoned or delayed their upgrade because of this barrier, because of current employment situations where they can't recreate that residential experience hours because maybe they're a review appraiser, they work for a tax assessor. At a time when Texans need more certified general appraisers, especially in rural areas, this policy stifles career growth and restricts market capacity. Respectfully, I propose that TALCB lock in the previously approved experience and limit any new audit to the incremental hours required for the higher credential. Licensed residential to certified residential, audit only the additional 1,000 hours earned after the initial licensure. Certified residential to certified general, audit only the additional 1,500 hours of non-residential work that demonstrate the competency in the general property class. Hours that earn the applicant's current license would be presumptively acceptable and exempt from re-audit. The benefits to the stakeholders. It protects the public by focusing review on the most risk-sensitive assignments that are specific to that new license, encourages professional growth by removing an obstacle, aligns with USPAP by respecting its work file requirement rather than imposing an implicit keep it forever rule, if the appraiser were to want to upgrade in the future, especially if they were to seek, go and get their college degree later on in life. We need to upgrade pathways that recognize the experience we have already gained. By auditing only new experience, TALCB can safeguard the public interest while fostering career advancement for currently licensed and certified appraisers. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. This is the very difficult task at this moment, but that is not on the agenda item, so we cannot discuss it, which is
I understand.
it's difficult. So, but we certainly appreciate you coming, and this is exactly why we open this time, because there's times when there's something that you're passionate about that you think maybe as board members we don't know about, and I have to say that's something that after 6 years I don't know about. So we will definitely get that on the Education Committee agenda item to discuss, and then move forward with some of your possible suggestions, and we might reach out to you for additional clarification, because it's those types of things. And I kind of want to say this to all appraisers in the state of Texas: if there is something that you're passionate about, you don't have to come to Austin and come to one of these meetings. You can also email us as board members, and because there are things, we've been appraisers for a really long time, and there are things that we just don't encounter in the process. And so bringing those to our attention is something that we absolutely want appraisers in the state of Texas to do, because we want to do better. And I know staff wants to help us do better too. So we certainly appreciate you coming today and bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Education Committee, yes, we will have that on our next for discussion. Thank you again, Mr. Dobbs. Okay, this brings us to agenda item number 5, the ratification of the official record of the February 21st, 2025 board meeting as approved for posting on the website by the Secretary of the Board. This is on page 7 in our materials. And if we don't have any discussions, I will hear a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board ratifies the minutes from the February 21st, 2025 board meeting.
I second.
We have a motion by Dr. Robinson and a second by Mr. Castro. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 6 is the report by the Executive Committee. This is on page 11 in our materials. And I wanted to point out a couple of items from our meeting. We had a update about the Perea grads. I think we had 7 in the state of Texas that have passed. And so I reached out to the Institute, and just as a, this is great news. And we were told that I think 29 have passed nationwide of their Perea grads. And I just wanted to mention that because, they all passed on their first try, their exams, which says a lot about, I think that we started the Perea discussion while I was on the board, or the discussion for Perea was started while I was on the board. I know it started way back before that, but and I think we were all really worried about the quality of, what kind of appraiser that was going to produce. So just sort of anecdotally, I think that that's a good sign that they have all passed the exam on the first try. At least it means that they were prepared for the exam, right? But I also wanted to mention that from the budget perspective, because, obviously 7 is not a huge number, but if we continue down that path, we have to consider that the number of trainees that we're going to have is going to shrink, which is, obviously impactful to our budget. So something to consider as we move forward through that. The other thing was, we had a return to office mandate by the governor, and that is something that we certainly have been working on, and things have changed since that came down. But we also want to keep an eye on it from the standpoint of our rent and moving to the new building. So that was something else I wanted to mention to those of you on the Budget Committee. And then the ASC grants, that it's on pause, and they are kind of changing some things around. So that's another budgetary item that we need to, to keep our eye on. Any other questions about the Executive Committee report? If none, we can move on to agenda item number 7. And this is, we'll do the Budget Committee report, and then we will tackle agenda item number 18. So this is on page 14 of our materials. Dr. Robinson.
Yes. So we had a great meeting for budget. We are, of course, in budget review cycle right now, which is awesome. A lot of hard work from the committee as well as our staff in getting the right numbers for you all. As you can see on the notes from our meeting, we reviewed the first draft of the budget. We reviewed the policies as well. The committee did not make any changes this most recent meeting. However, what's exciting is that we have requested staff produce supply us with some additional information for our next meeting regarding a couple things. One is related to the shared expenses with Trek that I know has been talked about. So we want to take a look at that. We also want to take a look at the surplus that we had for last budgeting cycle, so we could make good informed decisions and produce a budget draft for you guys to review. So we're going to revisit that as well. Those are the primary things. We are also, the staff also recommended an amount to be potentially allocated to help with the audits. I know, Chair, you had made that recommendation a little while ago, so we've put that into the staff has put that into the recommendations as well. So next board meeting, we'll have some adjustments, some good numbers for you guys to look at, as well as policy drafts, and hopefully we can get a good budget. Well, I know we'll get a good budget taken care of and voted on soon for the next fiscal year. But it was a great meeting, great committee, and thank you to the committee members as well.
Fantastic. And I would like to, thinking of that, of the cycle, I wanted to make sure that our new board members, when they come on, have the schedule of how the budget, we propose it, and then so that they understand. I think I was probably 3 years in before before I really understood that process. So I think that's helpful, especially if they're coming on for the August board meeting, which at that time we will be solidifying our budget for the fiscal year. And so they will, it'll be the first time that they see it, but so they kind of understand where we are in the process, that we're at the end of it. And so it's at that point, it's a little difficult to make change. But
Yes, and you're making me, I'm actually thinking, I'm not going to hold us up, but is there a way we can make sure that they're integrated in the process? I don't know, because I don't know if it's coming to the board meetings. I know we can only have so many, or the committee meetings, but I just want to make sure the new board members are able to be looped in before August, if there's a way to do that. But yes, great suggestion. Thank you for that.
well, and that's sort of the other thing that is a little difficult, is because we will have holes on some of the committees between now and August. So at August, y'all will have to bring back up, filling the executive spot, and then any committee.
Madam Chair, you're so awesome. She's making sure we're good even after she steps down. But again, great suggestions. No, keep it coming, because it's awesome. It's things, again, we didn't think about. So you're taking care of us on your way out too.
Awesome or controlling?
No, totally awesome.
The other thing
But
we'll
great
do
suggestion. Thank you for
is
that.
provide new members with an orientation and explain some of these details. And we can kind of tell them what's coming up in August, so that
Great.
they're ready, of course, within the bounds of the walking quorum.
Awesome.
So that's what we'll work on.
Thank you. Great suggestion.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Okay, if anybody doesn't have any questions for Dr. Robinson, then Ms. Williams can come up and we can tackle our budget, item number 18. And this material came to us under separate cover. So it's the separate tabs on our iPad, agenda item number 18, A, B, C.
Good morning, everyone. It's going to look like this. Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Agenda item 18, discussion regarding the 2026 draft budget and financial administration policy and investment policy. As the Chair just mentioned, the materials were provided under separate cover. And as Dr. Robinson just mentioned, we did meet on April 24th to go over this first draft of the budget, the administration policy and the investment policy. And as you all know, the budget is presented, and it's the 3-year budget. The first year, labeled 2026, is the only year intended to be adopted, while 27 and 28 are to be considered a forecast. Some of the highlights included in this budget are, you'll see that there were no additional FTEs that were added during this budget cycle. However, a 3% merit is included in the salary and wages category. We did allocate $5,000 towards the internal audit contract, and that is in the professional fees and services category. We also examined our other operating expenses category and identified some efficiencies there, where we could eliminate some subscriptions or cancel memberships, decrease the number of attendees at Aero, and which would save on registration fees and travel. In regards to the actual revenue overview on page 5 of your materials, I believe, our projections are relatively flat. In 2026, that is an even year, so we expect to collect more revenue in the AMC fee category, excuse me, as that is when most of the renewals for this license type occur. We have a slight decrease in license fees due to the decrease in the trainee applications that you've already mentioned, Chair. We're already starting to see that. And we have, as well as any new certified appraiser applications. And so any reduction in the initial applications also affects our exam revenue because we have less people taking the exams. If we have less people applying to become certified appraisers. And so in looking at that, in 2027, we're projecting 2.2 million and 2.5 million in 2028. Moving on to our expenses, we're projected to be about 2.5 million in 2026. This is in line with our projections for the previous years. There's a slight increase in salary and wages to accommodate for the 3% merit. We have the $5,000 increase in professional fees and services to account for the cost of the internal audit so that the scope could be increased. You'll also notice that we're still maintaining $150,000 for contract support and professional fees and services as well. And so in 27 and 28, you'll see a slight increase to our expenses, pushing them to approximately 2.6 million. And that is due only to the 3% merit for staff. Like, we don't have any other major changes within our budget except for that 3% merit for staff. And so that affects your salary and wages and other personnel costs. On page 7 of the material, it's gonna present the budget to you in a line item fashion. And here you will see that we're projecting that the unreserved balance, that section that's in the middle in the black, the thick black border, we're projecting that the unreserved balance to start FY26 is 2.7 million. It will decrease slightly to 2.6 million in 2027, and then to 2.2 million in 2028. Staff has been directed by the Budget Committee to provide them analysis and recommendations to reduce the unreserved funds while ensuring that the agency still remains financially healthy for the years to come. We'll provide that information for them to review at the next Budget Committee meeting and provide their feedback and incorporate their direction. On page 8 of that, of your materials, that just shows you any historical trends from like 2016 through 2028. And you can see our projections and the actual license count and the revenue that was associated with it. And then on page 9 is just the agency staffing information. And as you can see, we currently have 17.6 FTEs. We have 2 vacancies, and we are not currently planning to add any additional FTEs to TLCB at this time. And so that pretty much concludes the meat and potatoes of this first draft of the budget. And then we also reviewed the budget policy and the investment policy. No changes were recommended to those documents. The documents that are before you are the same documents that were approved at the August 2024 meeting for those. Do we have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions about the budget for Ms. Williams?
Thank you, ma'am.
This doesn't require a motion by the board. Again, at the August meeting is when this will be finalized. I did want to say, I know we've had some discussions about our surplus, and as chair, as Mr. McAnally pointed out, I attend all the different committee meetings, and so I sort of get to dig into every facet of the agency. And I will say that just recently, like I said about the PREA and also the return to work, the rent, and there was another thing from, I don't know if it was, maybe it was the budget. At some point, we were talking about the AMCs. In January, they have to say how many people they have on their panels, and then we send those fees to the feds. Mm-hmm. ASC collects $25 a head. And so we were kind of looking at year over year and had seen that it hadn't changed much from, we collect in 25 for 24, correct? Is that, am I? Okay, so the last two collections we've done have kind of been about the same, but when you compare it to 2022, the third year, whatever year that is, it was significantly down. And so that's another facet that the budget committee needs to consider. And maybe because, let me explain that a little bit further. In Texas, AMCs pay a registration fee when they come to the state of Texas. So that's their application fee. And then every 2 years, they pay a renewal. On top of that, they pay an ad drop fee. And that was intended so that small AMCs sort of shouldered a smaller burden of the cost of the program as opposed to larger AMCs. And so we can see from the ad drop fees how big their panels are. And that tells us a little bit about where we are in the market. And so when the market went down, with the interest rate increases, they shed a lot of those. And so we see that not only in our ad drop fees, but also in the AMC fees that they send to the Fed. So that's something else to consider. So there just seems to be, in addition to the other items and that, I just want to make sure that going forward, y'all are going to have to do something about this. Not some, but you need to make a decision or decide about the budget surplus. But I would just caution you, not to, that maybe something radical is not the time right now, just with some of the uncertainty going forward. And, we haven't bounced back at all from our high of when the market was going gangbusters. So that's just something to consider for budget discussions going forward. Anything else budget related before we let Ms. Williams go? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Just had a real quick comment. I don't know if this is allowed or not. I just kind of spit it out. Can we get, it's like, what are you going to say? Can we have the board members submit, take a look at the budget, submit any questions, feedback, anything like that to us, to our staff, so that for our next committee meeting, we have those in hand and we can kind of address those during the committee meeting? Is that acceptable? I just want to make sure we're thorough in the next meeting to consider whatever, so that we can present something in August that.
I think that really has to happen at this.
Yeah, I mean, this is truly the space for that feedback.
Okay.
And then, we don't have a quorum issue that way, but.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I guess to avoid any kind of walking quorum or issues with that, if any board members had anything specific, they could just submit it to staff.
To staff
and
directly,
not to
yeah.
their fellow board members. And then that way staff could, it's still, okay.
Yeah, as, Executive Director mentioned, we could just address it generally in that way.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, if nothing else for the budget, then we will move on to agenda item number 8, the report by the Education and Licensing Committee. This is on page 16 in our materials. Mr. McAnally.
Good morning. Our meeting was held on April the 23rd, and as you can see from the write-up, we had a very, very busy meeting. I would just like to highlight that some of the things that probably are toward the end that may or may not caught your attention, but I'd like to point out that the ASB and AQB both have concept papers out for comment, and we encourage appraisers, not only just here, but at this meeting, but out in the marketplace, to read those and put your comments in. They have to deal with additional experience and also generative AI. So those are things coming down in our profession that we need to take a look at. In addition to that, AQB has a job survey out, and it has a dual purpose. One is to find out from the job survey if they need to look at the exam questions and alter the exam questions or change those. Further, they're also looking at potential changes to the criteria related to college degree requirements. So this is their comment period for all of us to take their documents, read them, and then make our voices known as individual appraisers. The largest section of this, which we would like to visit with the board and get their feedback on, has to do with the practicum courses. Staff has been very, very busy creating proposed approval processes and rule changes that may be necessary to open this door up. They've had some inquiries from providers of practicum courses, and so we would like to take a few minutes for staff to be able to make a presentation to y'all and give you an overview of what all this is establishing.
And we do have that on an agenda item, so I don't want to move it, but that's what we will do 17 before 11 and 12, so we will have time to discuss that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for Mr. McAnally?
I just come up every meeting with the same concern. And, I guess I'll be doing that for a while. But, it does concern me, for all of our applicants and test takers with the fail rate and the, and the pass rate. And it just seems to me, again, that, we can do better. I don't know what the problem is over and over, and before you, we've always had this this question about the difficulties in passing, the exams, and it's a hard thing for a lot of the people taking the classes, and I've known lots of people and how hard it is when they study and study and study, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Is it, the people giving the classes are not specifying exactly what they need to know, or is it the way the questions are asked, and is it the teaching, or is it quality of people coming to take the test? But it does concern me, and so I have to keep saying that until we get to a 75% pass rate.
I don't have any disagreement about that, and those same thoughts have gone through my mind as well. Fortunately, I have a lot of trainees, and so I've been in the trenches on that, so to speak. And what I'm learning in discussions with them, as well as they will take the course and they can pass the course, but the other part of this that they get frustrated about is, how did I miss this question? What do I do here? And I basically told them through my experience in various professional organizations, you have your experience credits, and then you have your technical skill sets to learn. But when it comes time for your certification, the only way they can test you is through a test. And so there is an art to understanding the questions that a formatted test, a bank of questions will be asking you. In our business, in my work model, we make test questions available to them. You can subscribe to those. You can get them through various appraisal organizations. You can get that. But what I have found is normal trend for a trainee out of my shop is they don't pass the first time around. And then they learn through that first exam exactly how this is being approached. And then they usually pass on the second.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like the AQB is asking for input on the test questions, so
yes,
right.
I'm glad that that's a priority. Very good. Thank you, Mr. McAnally. Agenda item number 9 is staff reports, and the summary for staff reports starts on page 19 in our materials. Executive Director Buckholz. Good morning.
Good morning.
Again.
It's good to see all of you on this very hot Friday. I don't know why it's so hot in May, but it's gotten me a little bit grumpy. I know it's a really busy season for all of us, so I think we're going to get through this meeting pretty quickly, which is amazing. Well done. Just a few updates for you, a few of which have already been mentioned, so I'll keep them short. First is PIREA, and we've talked about this a little bit in committee meetings, but we have had 7 PIREA graduates apply for licensure in Texas, all of which have been granted, and all of whom passed their test on the first try. I think that's really remarkable. I think we will watch to see what those numbers do with the thought that that program may really ramp up, which would be exciting. Also, already mentioned just a little bit, the ASC grant is primarily on hold. ASC has really pushed back on what they'll approve for grant funding. They're no longer allowing funds to go towards activities related to barriers to entry. And overall, they've adopted a much more conservative approach to granting, to awarding grants. So in response, we have worked with the grants team at the ASC to revise our request. That discussion is ongoing. We're looking towards a request that would be primarily based on technology improvements. But I think it will be slow going, and we will keep you posted on that progress. I know a few of you went to the virtual Aero conference earlier this month, end of April, early May. We sent 2 investigators from our team, and then Kathleen Santos, General Counsel, also attended. And I understand Dr. Robinson and Mr. Bolton also attended on behalf of the board. I know y'all may have some reporting back during that agenda item. But from what I heard from staff, we heard a lot about AI, this time meaning artificial intelligence. I know that acronym means a few things. And there's a concept paper that was recently released that had a lot of discussion at Aero on whether or not the ASB needs to consider whether USPAP needs to infuse more AI consideration in USPAP requirements. So no decision point on that, just kind of a bubbling discussion as I understand. Also a lot of dialogue regarding the AQB's consideration to make changes to the criteria. AQB is looking at the college degree requirement and additional experience that could count towards the appraiser credential, and then they're also looking at the exam. Again, all just bubbling discussions, but those were the highlights shown or reported back to me from staff. And then more generally, you've heard from Ms. Williams regarding the draft budget before you, just the first draft. Much more work will go into that, of course. The Budget Committee, of course, plans to do a thorough review at its next meeting on our current funding levels and how best to manage the growth of our balances and with an eye towards kind of the environment in which we're in, which seems to be full of uncertainty. 2 administrative updates regarding really the agency as a whole I wanted to shine light on. One, Chair Oates mentioned the return to the office. Based on a directive from the governor's office, we've made some changes to our telework policy. We've submitted that policy to the governor's office, have not received feedback on that, which means we move forward, assuming it's fine. And leadership is now back in the office 5 days a week with some latitude for telework, just for the flexibility of life that we all need, and that occurred long before COVID existed. For the rest of our staff, the schedule ranges from 1 to 3 days in the office each week, unless they are 100% remote. Field staff are 100% remote, and then also individuals who live more than 50 miles from the office. We landed on this plan after a lot of discussion and work, looking at what the legislature is doing or might do on telework. That is yet unknown, of course. But our eye was to balance space limitations in our office, along with the increased productivity that we realized when we became more remote, the benefit of telework. So we're balancing those things, and we're driving forward with really just identifying business, making decisions based on business need. Lastly, I have been talking, I think at every report I provide you, I've been talking about a new licensing database. It's been at least 3 years. We're about a year behind in that database implementation, but I hope when I next report to you, we are days away from completing the transition to that new system. Divisions are actively working to implement the system, validating configuration and validating the workflows of the system, validating a second test of data conversion that includes about 85 to 90% of our data. We expect to complete another 2 rounds of test data conversion before we do the real thing, converting to the new system. This is a very intense season. I meet one-on-one with all of our directors regularly, and almost all of them come to my office and they sit at my table. I say, okay, what are we going to talk about? And they say, Acela. Acela is the vendor for that new database. So that is how that is the top of mind for all of our leadership. It's an intense season, and we're getting close to that finish line. Marathon, not a sprint, a long marathon, maybe like the Leadville 100 kind of marathon. But I could not be prouder of our staff who have worked really long hours to make this a success. We will have a dark period at the end of August where renewals will not occur. We are communicating to license holders robustly to make sure they know of that. We also know that this will not be perfect and there will be frustrations, but our expectation is that we will have that new system and it will be worth all of the heartache. I'm happy to answer any questions on that or anything we've talked about or beyond. Anything? Okay, thanks for your time.
Does anybody have any other thoughts, questions, discussion on staff reports? I did want to point out to my fellow board members, on page 34 is our license count number, and I know that we, for budgeting purposes, pay attention to that closely. I wanted to kind of, again, along my discussion about the uncertainty going forward, we had our trainee count in August 2022, of course, was in the middle of all the greatness, was at about 1,500, and we're now down to 840. So that is a net loss of 660 trainees since August 2022. That's obviously significant. I think a trainee application is $300. Is that correct in Texas? 152? 250? Okay. So, that's about $150,000, that those 660 count reduction. And of course, now those people who are no longer trainees are no longer going to become part of our certified general and licensed count either. So that will impact, that total number, which has kind of hovered in the 5,500 range for many years. We know that we're an aging profession, and so without new trainees coming in and a lot of appraisers retiring, that of course is going to affect those license numbers, and of course those are more expensive application fees. Again, it's going to impact our bottom line. Our highest for our general certified and licensed, of course, those appraisers tend to renew. It's very difficult to get the license, so you hang on to it with both hands for as long as you can. So that's a little bit more of a steady income revenue stream. So that has dropped from a high in August of 2024 of 5,900, and we're at about 5,775 now. So that's sort of holding steady. But again, as our trainee license numbers dwindle, we can expect that is going to dwindle as well. Also on the AMC side, in 2023, we had a high of 182 AMCs, and now we have 166. And again, those are more expensive application fees. So that's about $50,000 that's on the every 2 years that's going to impact our budget. So again, to just keep an eye out on these numbers as you move forward and figure out what to do with any surplus that we have. Is there anything else from the staff reports that? Hearing none, we can move on to agenda item number 10, which is executive session. We don't have a need for executive session unless anyone has anything that hasn't been brought up to this point, so we will move to we are going to do agenda item number 17 before we do 11 and 12. And so we will start that discussion with Director Tran. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Okay, so we moved this item around a little bit because it goes hand in hand with some of the rule changes that Kat will be presenting to you next. We wanted you to have context for those rules. For this item, you're going to hear from two Melissas. First, I'm going to give you information on what the board would need to do if we were to go through with the creating a program to approve a practicum. And then you'll hear from Melissa Bond, the creator of the Mississippi Practicum Program, and she'll give you information from the provider's perspective. With this information, hopefully you'll be able to decide whether or not Texas should create an approval program for the practicum process.
Can I just pause you real quick? This is on page 91 in our materials for everyone.
And then from there, if you decide that we should move forward, the question is whether or not you have any feedback on the checklist in your materials. I will say that I think that this checklist is going to evolve from the feedback that we get from providers and potential students and other interested parties between now and the next meeting. What we plan to do is take that feedback to the next Education and Licensing Committee meeting, and then we'll present it again to you at the next meeting for final approval. Okay. One of the biggest barriers to entry into the profession is gaining experience. Currently, there are 3 ways for aspiring appraiser to get experience. The first is through our traditional trainee supervisor model. That is limited to the number of appraisers who are willing to supervise. The second way is PIREA. That's 100% online, and it's only currently offered through one provider. And then the third way to get experience is through mass appraisal work, which can only be gained through work at an appraisal district. Adding practicums as a pathway to gain experience will reduce barriers to entry, making it a little bit easier for aspiring appraisers to enter into the profession. But at the same time, we have to recognize that developing an approval process comes with some risks for us. That being, we might approve a program that doesn't perform well. Initially, we had hoped to avoid this risk by relying on the AQB to approve the practicum courses, but up until this point, we know that the AQP has yet to approve a single program, and we're hearing from providers that their process is overly burdensome. Practicum providers are now going to state seeking approval, and so this has kind of left it up to individual states to determine whether and how they want to go about implementing their own approval process. My hope is that by creating a robust practicum process with clear rules, a detailed checklist, and getting stakeholder feedback, the risk is mitigated. And speaking to the ASC program manager, the steps that we're taking are more robust than what they've seen in other states. So I think that's a good sign. Okay, I think that gives you context of why we've gotten to this point and why this is in front of you today. So now let's shift focus and drill down onto the specifics of what the actual process looks like. The AQB requirements for a practicum are fairly minimal. It just says that the practicum must include generally applicable methods of appraisal practice appropriate for the specific credential category. This gives states a lot of discretion in how to build the approval process. In the proposed process before you here today, the first thing a provider would do is to apply in Texas to become a practicum provider. This part is not new. It's the same exact process that continuing education providers go through that's been in place for many years. The second part would be to submit an application for approval for their practicum course. They'll submit all of their course documents, and then what staff will do is review it against the checklist on page 119 of your materials. Okay. So I'm going to briefly go through the sections of this checklist. This checklist was developed in consultation with providers, the AC, and the AQB. The first section is the general content review. So this category of review ensures that course materials are professional, the time allocated is reasonable, and that the materials demonstrate that the course is focused on practical applications of the appraisal process. The second review piece is reviewing the appraisal assignments and experience log. At the end of the practicum, students will have an experience log which consists of the appraisal reports that they've completed. We'll review this to ensure that the practice reports are actual practice and they're not being done real client assignments, that the properties and problems are varied enough so that the students encounter problems that they'll see in the real world, And thirdly, that they comply with USPAP. So importantly, we're going to do this check at the front end with a provider and not at the back end. We won't be conducting an experience audit when the students come to apply. We'll just accept their course completion certificate, much like Pyrrhea. The third thing that we'll look at is their instructor qualifications policy. This is basically to ensure that the providers hire competent instructors. And then finally, we'll review all of the policies that the providers should have in place. And so this includes like the instructor-student ratio to make sure that they have an attendance cap, attendance policy, scheduling policy, records policy. Okay, so that is all I have before I turn it over to Melissa Bond, but do you have any questions for me? Okay, with that.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to form my question.
Yeah.
So is it seen, how does this compare, I mean, as far as Pyrrhea? I mean, it seems like it's very similar.
The way that I see it, and so I bet Melissa Bond will be able to give you more details on how it looks, but the way that I see it is like a hybrid between traditional and Pyrrhea. So like Pyrrhea is like 100% online and competency-based. Traditional is like 100% with my supervisor. And so these two kind of like mush it together where there's like on-the-ground, in-person training, but also like some coursework involved too.
And so how would a practicum work as far as licensing? How much time do you have in? What grade of license can you get? Could you just explain that to us, please?
Yeah, so the way that this is modeled, and like I said, it's pretty slim with the criteria says, so we can change it if we wanted to, but the way that I have it modeled in this proposed process is when you come to get approval for a practicum as a provider, it's like a whole module, so a licensed module or a certified module or a certified general module. And so you get approved for the whole thing, not just like bits of hours. So it's a lot like Pyrrhea, how we intend to set it up.
And if we approved it in the state of Texas, would it apply only to Texas applicants?
So we'll accept it in the state of Texas. I think it'd be up to the other states if they would be willing to accept a Texas practicum to satisfy their experience.
So it could lead to, if you lived out of state of Texas, could you do this if it's sort of a hybrid? Could you participate in a program in Texas?
I don't think so. One of the differences that if it's a Texas, it really depends on how the provider has it set up. So like if they're doing, the programs that I've seen are required the student to be in person, but I guess a provider could make it to where the viewing the properties is virtual. And so theoretically, yes, but I haven't seen that concept put in place for a practicum.
Okay. Just my thought is that if Texas is shouldering the burden of approving these courses, and which is going to take a lot of time, staff resources, board resources, and then people from out of state benefit, and they're collecting application fees elsewhere when we're doing the work. Yeah. So that's sort of my concern. And so if we get to that, if we get to that point, that's something to consider. How do we make sure that we are benefiting fully from the work that we're putting into it? I think that Texas, our appraiser board is much more sophisticated than a lot of other states because we are a sister agency to TREC. And so we sort of get brought up with them, which means that it costs us more to run our program than it does other states because we are keeping up with our big sister in all the ways, the technology ways and that sort of thing. So if being that a more sophisticated agency allows us to do this work that the AQB, it feels like, is not filling that gap, I just want to make sure that we're benefiting as well, that we're not paying for it, that Texas appraisers aren't paying to license people out of state, so to speak. Am I making sense?
Great point.
Okay. And so will you just, I know Melissa will get up here, but just sort of introduce her and why she's here speaking to us about this today.
Melissa Bond flew in from Mississippi. Were you in Mississippi last night. Yep, to be here with you. She's the creator of the first practicum program that has launched. She is now in 7 states. Her first initial program was the Mississippi practicum program.
Very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, and first off, excellent job, each of you. I love just sitting and hearing what you do and how much you care about your state. I'm here to help you care just a little bit more, okay? I can give you my presentation. I have a short presentation to tell you how this practicum works, and then I have some answers to some of the questions that I just heard, the multi-state. You don't want to bear the burden. What's wrong with why can't we pass an exam? I can give you those answers. I'd be happy to. So let's start with just presenting exactly what the practicum is. The practicum is actually the second pathway to licensing. PREA is the third. The practicum has been outlined by the AQB since 2008. 2008, the AQB said this is a coursework that states can approve. It's state approval. That's one of the questions to what you've been asking. It's state approval for the coursework for individuals to gain experience, meaningful experience, and education for their 1,000 hours toward licensure. So the AQB outlined that in the criteria back in 2008. In 2019 is when my team and I, 2 of which are Texans, by the way, I think you'll be happy to hear that. I myself am also a member of the Association of Texas Appraisers and have been for several years. Now, why is that? When you live in Mississippi, because they're an outstanding organization that takes pride in their state. They take pride in educating appraisers. So I've been a member of Texas for quite some time, the association. Now, in 2019 is when this God-given vision, I have to say that's exactly what it was, that it's time to develop this second pathway that has been basically laying dormant for quite some time and shouldn't be, because we have so many barriers to entry. We have so many that can't pass the exam. First, second, third. I spoke with one gentleman 6 times. He took the exam. So let's talk about a solution. That's what I'm here to discuss, a solution for you. I call it the ultimate, who's doing the, okay, yeah. The ultimate learning experience. This is our classroom. This is our classroom. I go out on site. We may stay on a site 3 hours. This is where we learn. This is more in the line of a supervisor pathway, but it's not something that PREA's been able to offer. Again, as Ms. Tran said, this is a bit of a dovetailing, a bit of a marrying up of the 2 pathways. Highly effective. This is our classroom, okay? We focus on USPAP. That is the number one. In answer to your question, Ms. Reed Lynch, that's one of the reasons that individuals get before that licensing exam and they've learned practice. They've learned practice from their supervisor, because every day they're churning out reports, they're working on pieces and parts, but oftentimes these sometimes brilliant appraisers simply do not know how to convey knowledge to those that they're training, so that component is missing. And when they get before that exam, they find out, I'm not familiar with this. This program begins, the focus is on USPAP. I would be embarrassed to tell you how long I was an appraiser, and I'm a 33-year appraiser, by the way. I have served on the Appraiser Standards Board. I'm on the National Association of Appraisers. The list can go on and on. Just Google and find out. Not going to bore you with that right now. I bet I was appraising 10 years before I really understood the value of the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. And most appraisers out there would probably say the same thing. This practicum begins, go ahead, with understanding USPAP. We build a strong foundation. From that foundation is where we move into practice. That's why this program is so successful. We start with, and you can see, I'm not going to read each one of them, you can see everything in front of you. This is your national exam. You are looking at your national exam right there. You know what it is? It's understanding how to put these rules, these standard rules, into practice. That's the beginning and the end. That's the component that isn't emphasized the way that it should be. It is emphasized in Perea. It is extremely emphasized in this practicum. Yes, ma'am? Our focus is on education. We go right down with problem identification, scope of work development, understanding the assignment elements. This is all USPAP, and what we do with this is we move it into actual development and reporting. Again, that's why it's successful. I talked about my developers. Myself and 5 national instructors, again, 2 of which right here in Texas. Miss Pam Teal, Mr. Greg Stevens, right here in Texas, part of developing this phenomenal program. This is where we began. Go ahead. We follow all the way through into your 3 approaches to value. Well, now that they're at the 3 approaches to value, they have a better understanding of, I'm not just going out, maybe measuring, doing my photos. We are in depth. I have an entire lesson on roof types. We have an entire lesson on ceiling types, an entire lesson on how an appraiser should take a photo. These may seem, my goodness, isn't that just common? Well, maybe not. Have you looked at some of your appraisals that maybe come before your board? Okay. So we go in depth. Yes, ma'am. We gain meaningful experience. I always tell them, if you can't understand construction, how can you value? How can you value it? So we have so many lessons on simply identification, understanding how quality of construction relates to value, not cost, value. You want to know what their lesson was this morning? The difference between cost, price, and value. Phenomenal difference between those 3. So in answer to some of the questions, that's why they have a better understanding. That's why the first-time testers, they're passing. Go ahead. Presentation. So how do we make this happen? We do live training and experience. Live training. Again, I set up residential properties. We go out to them. We may spend 2 or 3 hours at a property. On-site visits, we measure, we collect data, we drive through the areas, discussing the market, discussing the neighborhood. We do virtual meetings every morning, Monday through Friday. Now, these are mandatory attendance. This is not, oops, I have a toothache. Oh my goodness, it's not convenient. This is a very difficult program because it requires a high level of commitment. These folks are giving it. They're giving it because they see the value in it. Monday through Friday morning, and it's always recorded. It's not recorded so you can miss the session. It's recorded so you can go back and review it. I track when they go back and review it. I track everything. They go back and review them. I don't even have to say you're required to go back and review it. And I'm watching the numbers tick up. Virtual trainings Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, again, recorded. One-on-one training sessions. I may have an appraiser, one of the trainees, and within a practicum, they're called students, okay? I may have one of the students say, Melissa, I don't understand this. 5 minutes later, we're on a Zoom call, and I'm explaining it. And I will always say, do you mind if I record this? Because someone else may have this same question. I allow them that privacy. If they would prefer, no, I'd rather you not record it. We don't record it. One-on-one training, daily definition reminders. I do exam prep. If you can't speak the language, it's going to be difficult to pass that exam. I teach them to speak the language. Oftentimes, I'll ask a question in a class, and then I'll say, okay, now let's hear that in appraiser language. And then, oh, Melissa, I forgot. And so I am always emphasizing that to them. We have that video library that is available, hundreds and hundreds of time recorded that they can go back. Let's say right now we're doing effective age. They can go back and they've got at least 6 effective age classes that they can review again. Lesson material and topic is all the topic research. Everything is distributed to them. Let's say we're doing, what we have here, replacement cost and reproduction. Okay, that's one Miss Pam Teal developed, what you're looking at there. I send that to them as well as it is our lesson for that day. I also send it to them and encourage them to keep a binder of this information so they can go back and look at it. Lesson illustrations. Oftentimes we will do case studies there in class and we will analyze something together and it helps me to see where their thinking pattern is. Okay. All right, our statistics. I know that's what you're concerned with, is the statistics. Now, I will tell you this. To start with, our very first class was 17 individuals that took the first class. I had two that did not pass the national licensing exam. I can't remember who it was that alluded to it earlier. Sometimes individuals simply don't have capacity, and we understand that. Maybe this just isn't their area of expertise. One young lady had all the enthusiasm, had all the desire, and had wanted to be an appraiser for 5 years. She simply wasn't capable of passing the exam. Well, that's a gatekeeper. That's a gatekeeper. And as much as it hurts, it's best she didn't pass the exam. You wouldn't want someone to accidentally pass an exam and now they're going to stand before you at some point because they've harmed the public. So we've had one person that simply just didn't have capacity. The other person that was never successful, which harmed our statistics, but I'm not concerned in the least about that because I call him my successful failure. He was the vice president of a community college and thought he was going to retire, and this was going to be at an early age, his next career. Well, within the last 2 months of the practicum, he was appointed to the presidency. And he said, I'm not going to let you down, Melissa. He said, I'm going to finish. I told him, I said, I understand. This is the golden opportunity. Folks, he started in janitorial at that school. Yes, I mean, this was a great feat. And so he did finish the practicum, but he didn't dedicate the time, only because he now became divided. He did not pass the exam. So that's our 2 that didn't pass the exam, which hurt our statistic, of course. I had 2 individuals that had to take the test twice. One of them actually had her doctorate, and she told me, she said, I'm not good at exams. She said, I'm going to let you down. I said, no, you're not. You're not going to let me down. If you take it a second time, you're going to be successful because all your anxiety was wrapped up in that first. I'm not concerned. And she did. She was not successful on her first time, but she was on her second. And then I had one other individual that said the same thing, just scared to death to take that exam because it's hard. It is not an easy exam. And he too had to take it a second time. And I said, you know, it's like my son told me when he graduated from high school with his 70 grade point average. He said, my cap and gown fits just like the valedictorians. Okay? So basically, not one of the licenses says they had to take that test a second time because they had test anxiety. So there's a lot that goes into them. All of my instructors, as well as myself, and I now have 8 instructors. My original 5 that assisted with development, still there, still believe in what we're doing, still love the results of what we're doing. And then we now have 8 instructors. So we have capacity. The students have availability to the best education. I will tell you this, I am a proponent that if you only learn from one appraiser, it doesn't matter how dynamic that appraiser is, you haven't learned enough, which is why it is myself and 8 instructors, different perspectives. Let's look at our statistics. You can look here on the board. I went back to 2018, the national exam, the licensed category is the one that I'm looking at because that's the one, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. The licensed category started at 62% pass rate in 2018. First-time test takers, 2019 was 60, 2020 was 57, 2021 61, 2022 66, which seems to be the highest year. 2023, these are part of my statistics, that's boosting these scores, by the way, 64%, and then 2024, 64%. Now, even with those 4 individuals I just discussed with you, we're at 84% pass rate. Now, once I have folks that are taking the exam now, that are preparing for that, I am still in constant contact with them. I track those that leave this program. Where are you going? What are you doing? We'll be at 92% when this group that is taking their exam now, I have full faith that they're going to pass first time. And if they don't, I'm still not disappointed because what's important is the product that you're going to license. And you need to protect the rest of the Texans. You need to protect the consumers of appraisal services. And what better way to protect their interest than ensuring that those that are licensed are qualified. They're truly qualified. So you can see our statistics far exceed what has been done in the past. Now, we will continue. One more. I do want to introduce to you some of the folks that are making it happen. Diana Jacob, Pam Teal, Craig Morley, Tim Anderson, and Greg Stevens, and myself are the original developers of this. And then Linda Nelson is the only certified practicum. I have certified this program to Linda Nelson. She is now capable of running this practicum. Now, her first run, I will be fully involved as manager to ensure that we have consistency and continuity. But she is well versed in the program. Just the documents for the actual practicum itself exceeds 2,000. That's coursework. That's just the coursework. And then on top of that, the manager side of it is an additional 300 or 400 documents. So Linda Nelson will be running a practicum in South Carolina in 2026. She will be running this practicum. I would like to answer the question. You spoke about multiple states and that Texas does not want to spend your resources for others in other states. Currently, I'm running a 2-state program. I just ran a 2-state program before this. And when I say 2 states, the 2 states that are involved, each state is responsible for licensing their own. I ran a Mississippi and Louisiana. Now I'm running a Mississippi and a West Virginia. And yes, I travel to West Virginia. Yes, we meet several days in succession and we do our site visits. Yes, I meet with my Mississippi people, the exact same. So each of those states, the state licensing boards have already approved the practicum, and the only ones they're concerned with are their state students. You would, register as a trainee the same as you currently do now, and then they would start the practicum. They would go through the practicum, and this practicum is for a licensed category. Another practicum could be to bring them to certified residential. Another practicum could also be to certified general. But I felt like, and my original developers felt like, let's bring them to licensed first. I always believe in taking the small steps, make them sure, make them successful, and then we reach on, okay? So we can, in fact, run a Texas program, but I'll tell you this, when I run a Texas program for you, when you approve it, because I would certainly hope that that's our end game, that it is approved, I would run Texas only. And the reason for that is you have hundreds of individuals that are trying to get into our wonderful profession. But the door is seemingly closed because supervisors are not wanting to take anyone on. Supervisors are sunsetting, as we spoke about earlier. You've made that, discussed about our aging population. I'd like to think I'm 25, but you all have eyes, okay? So Texas will be responsible for only those in Texas, but I can assure you, I could run 3 Texas programs and still not pull in the number of individuals that are waiting. ATA did at the last conference, actually it was our ACTS conference, National Association of Appraisers conference, ATA highly involved, wonderful. As ATA members, we also did a site visit for trainees. I was very privileged to be a part of that as well. And if you would see the excitement, and all they kept asking me is, when are you running a practicum here? When are you running? One gentleman's with a supervisor right now, and he said, this is not against my supervisor, but he said, my goodness, I want to learn from you. Just from one site visit, seeing the depth of what we do. There's no shortage of individuals in this state, you know that. And you do need to replenish your numbers. As you just said, Madam Chair, your numbers are dwindling. So I would be happy to entertain any questions if you have them. Last slide.
Can you say again, how many states are you guys in, or how many states have approved practicums overall?
Okay, currently I think it's 7 states that have already approved my practicum.
Okay.
I am also working with other states right now that are as you are. They're about at the same stage as you are. I have been working with them for the different states probably about 4 years now, different increments of time. And of course, all states want to know the same thing. They want to see statistics. They want to know this works. You don't want to just take that chance. Well, number one, you're already You've already got that, okay? The states that bought in the first year or two had the faith and knew, wow, when they saw the program, they said, this is the way to gain your 1,000 hours. This is hands-on. This is availability. And that's the key. I'm available to them 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. Add those hours up.
May I also ask?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about statistics. What's the cost to the students to go through your practicum?
Okay.
Start to finish?
Thank you for asking that question. I hope that you'll understand my answer, okay, and have an appreciation for it. We have Sherman antitrust laws, do we not?
Yeah.
Okay. I am an individual practitioner. Now, because I am the trailblazer and the first, I do not want to have an appearance of setting a fee for this. The integrity of the program is at the heart of everything that we do with this practicum. But what I will tell you is, what would it cost to get an associate's degree? Well, about there.
So how long does the program take for the individuals? How do they find you? How long does it take? What does just the sort of program look like?
Well, the one thing is, boy, do they find me, okay? Every week I get emails begging me to take someone into the practicum. Please, I will do the best. So I have no shortage of applicants. Now, how long does the program run? I will tell you this. It depends on the number of students that I have in the program. If I have 20, which is what I consider to be an optimum number. Now, the AQB outline says that the instructor makes that decision as to how many are going to be. The instructor must have a ratio that is conducive to a learning environment. 20, I've been an education provider for 18 years, and so I have a lot of experience with that. All of my original developers, same thing, a lot of experience with that. And the conclusion is, at 20, we can still have that one-on-one, which is what they need. Now, if we put 40 in, that's going to diminish. We put 30 in, that's going to diminish. I'm looking for their success, okay? So how long does the program run? With 20 in 7.5 months of actual instruction and experience time, they can gain their 1,000 hours in 7.5 months. Now, what does that require of them? Well, they need to put at least 30 hours a week. This program is sacrifice. This program is all about sacrifice and dedication. They put in 30 plus hours a week in that 7.5 months. They will have. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, thank you for that. What are the 7 states you mentioned that you're currently approved?
I should write that down. Okay, all right. I'm going to do the best with memory. Mississippi, of course. Alabama, Arkansas, California.
You said Louisiana.
Thank you.
West Virginia.
Louisiana.
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Thank you. South Carolina.
I think you've got them all.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you for counting for me.
Good.
I'm an appraiser. I can't do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you require the trainees to complete qualifying education before starting?
Absolutely. But let me tell you how we require that.
Okay.
As you know, there's that 150-hour block, okay? What we require is, we require the first 4 courses to be taken. That's the principles, procedures, 15-hour use PAP. And then I also, though it's not required, it's not necessary from AQB standpoint, I also get them to take the supervisor trainee course. Simply because it's an understanding of the relationship and the responsibilities. So I required them to do that as well. Now, they take those 75 hours. That's when they apply to you for that trainee's registration number. I leave the last hours after the program, and here's the reason why. Once we have gone through the entire program, those last hours cement, and they have that confidence. I'm all about building confidence in them. When you have confidence, you can go further than you thought you could. And once they take those courses last, it builds that confidence, and it helps them to see, as one of my trainees said, I had no idea how much I knew. Breezed right through it, because that's right before they're going to take that licensing exam. We want to see success. Now, we want them to be successful, but again, the exam is difficult. The exam is not easy. You know, sometimes I've heard a lot of people say the exam questions are too hard. Maybe they need to rethink that. Well, maybe they need to be hard. Do you think the rest of the consumers in Texas would appreciate when they're going to refi or purchase a home that the appraiser's well qualified to do what they're doing?
Can you remind me, what is the maximum that a licensed appraiser can appraise? Is it one and a half?
Licensed, I think, licensed appraiser, and that AQB has a criteria for that, but I think it's 400,000, and then you have, well, if it's a federally related transaction,
right,
it's 400,000. Okay, it does exceed if it is not a federally. And actually, you have it in your, you have it right here in. It's right here in your own rules.
Less than $1 million.
Go ahead. Say it again. There you go. There you go. Okay, and that's for federally related transactions. I will tell you this. You may be thinking, okay, guess what? A licensed appraiser. No one wants to take on a licensed appraiser. Lending institutions, they want certified. Well, let me share this with you. No, that's not true. Now, several of my folks that have come out of my program have gone into corporate offices. They seek. I have banks, lending institutions, I have AMCs, I have individual appraisers calling me all the time. Who's graduating? I'd like one of your trainees that will be licensed to come and work in my office. So I have people seeking my individuals because they know how they're being trained. Also, 2 of my trainees, I had no idea, this is 2 different areas of the state, and they each called me at a different time and said, I applied to XYZ Bank, and they said, no, we're not taking licensed appraisers. We want certified appraisers on our panel. And the newly licensed appraiser told me, she said, so I sent them information and said, let me show you how I was trained. And when they submitted that they were an MPAT, Mississippi Practical Appraiser Training, when they submitted that, immediately they were put on the panel and said, oh, absolutely, you're on the panel. Now, they reviewed their work, of course, as they should. Another one of my trainees that were licensed actually said the exact same thing to me one day and said, all I had to do was show them the national attention this practicum has received. This is how I was trained and was put on. The Department of VA, also, there is a 5-year minimum experience before any appraiser can be put on the Department of VA's fee panel. My folks are going on straight licensed, newly licensed. VA is accepting because VA also knows how my folks are being trained.
So how do we, the reason I asked about the licensed is because, obviously if we're going to take the time and resources to approve this, then we want to make sure that we are filling a need in the, so along those same lines, how do we, I love the idea that y'all are all together in person and doing that. That to me is the best way to, learn how to appraise. How do we include rural appraisers?
You're looking at some of them right there. You're not, Mississippi is rural. I don't know if you've been through there. Folks, we don't have a skyscraper among us, okay?
I apologize. What I mean, in Texas, you can drive 14 hours and still be in the same state. So how do we get those appraisers that are out, 10 hours from an MSA?
So here's what I envision for your state, okay? Maybe that will kind of answer your question, Madam Chair. What I envision in Texas is I may run a program in Austin and the surrounding area. That's a couple of hours out. I may run one in Dallas, hours out. May run one in San Antonio, hours out. May go all the way to the western portion of your state where I don't even know any of the towns there. And we're gonna pull in that. So it would, because Texas is so large, I would focus on sectors of your state and pull folks in that way. Then when we meet, some of these folks drove 2 or 3 hours to get to this site visit. Okay, my Mississippi folks, Mississippi's 6 hours from south to north. I have them coming all the way from the north, coming all the way from the south. We will meet in the middle, and that's where we do our site visits, all in the middle to make it easier on everyone. But they're willing to do this because, number one, they see the statistics. Number two, they want to get into our profession and they're committed.
Something to think about is because we have such a large state, we need to keep an open mind about looking at the regions within our state that need the services the most and then drafting a program that's appropriate. Because what I'm concerned with is a barrier to entry. There are people who don't have the capacity to drive 3 hours. They have children, they have families, they may not have transportation. However, they want to get into the industry. So if we're going to look at this for our state, one of the things as a provider is to perhaps look at our state and see where the gaps are first, and then look at how we can fill those gaps that currently exist.
Dr. Robertson, I had that slide in here, but in the interest of time, I did try to make this as small as I can. Mississippi's 82 counties. In, I think it was, 13, 14 counties, we had 0 appraisers. In 14 counties, we had 1 appraiser. Let's hope they never get sick. In, I think it was 14 or 15 counties, we only had 2 appraisers, and they exceeded Social Security retirement age. Okay, Mississippi had a need. I looked at the need in those counties, appraiser numbers in those counties, and that was the first 3 programs I ran in Mississippi focused on those areas. I do take a lot of responsibility in this. Like, I wouldn't go into your Austin market and just flood your city right here with 20 new appraisers. That's not doing a service. You have areas of need. That's why I say hours out, but we would meet in Austin. Hours out, but we may meet there in Dallas. So yes, I do look at areas of need. You can look at areas of need. You can do a study on that and say, we think, Northwest Texas is the place that needs the greatest number of appraisers.
Yeah, and that's something that, if we're approving this, these are education companies who are private entities. They are companies, and that they are going to do what's in the best interest of their company, which absolutely. So it would be the carrot, not the stick, right, of trying to encourage them to serve our rural areas where we do have fewer appraisers, but try and maybe build that into our approval. Again, they're private entities, so we don't want to tell them what to do, but we also, if we're going to use our resources, we want to make sure that it's serving our state in the best way possible. So if we can kind of marry those two things,
And
as we go forward in approving, I think that that's important.
I can tell you what Mississippi did. Mississippi asked me when I brought the program before them, they said, absolutely, positively, we want this. Will you focus? They ask it as a question, will you focus on our area of need first? My commitment to them was yes. Now, on top of that, you know, I am an appraiser. I don't want 5 new appraisers in my area. What does that do to our income? See, we have to serve those that are already appraising as well, kind of backhandedly. So yes, a responsibility to the areas of your state that have need, definitely ask. We'd like to see that.
You know, we could get that information possibly from surveying our AMCs and, you know, a voluntary survey, what areas of need. And also, I think the other important thing would be to ask is, if this was only for licensure, not certification, would that fill a gap, or is that still a barrier, and that, you know, something that they won't take? You know, people, a lot of commercial appraisers, you know, banks say we only take MAIs, and that's their choice. Just like an AMC could have the choice to not accept licensed, only accept certified residential on their panels. So if we approve this program, we get a bunch of licensed appraisers that can't get on any AMC panels and aren't, you know, serving any significant portion of the state. I think the $1 million non-complex is probably, for most less served rural areas, is probably sufficient. So as long as we know that the AMCs will accept them on their and fill those gaps.
And another thing that you want to consider, remember, mortgage lending and AMC work is a very small segment of what an appraiser does, a book of business. My appraisers, everyone that has graduated out of this with that certificate of completion and has taken that national licensing exam, they're working. They're also certifying. They're also, and I tell everyone, folks, I want to see you go to certification, whether it's certified residential or certified general. They know that I have that expectation of them. I have 14 that are going to directly to certified general. From licensed, they are working towards certified general. The rest are working towards certified residential. So we're already on that movement. So they're not going to stay licensed. You're not going to have someone within 6 months, 500 additional hours of appraising, and they can sit for the certified residential exam, okay? The certified general does take a few more hours, as we know, another 1,500, but still, we're not talking about years. We're not talking about years of time. These folks are progressing from the licensed. But remember, AMCs are just one very small segment.
Well, I feel like
community.
When we talk to residential appraisers, it seems like that's a large portion of their business. Now, that might be urban appraisers, but that's maybe something else that we do. Again, we survey our rural appraisers in the underserved counties in Texas and ask them, who are, you know, what is your clientele? What's the percentage of it? Because again, we want to make sure that we are filling a need there, and that we know that if we get them through these programs, that they're going to be able to work.
Yeah,
and serve their communities.
I think that's a really great point, and that's, as a board, if we're considering approving this for our state, and I appreciate everything you've shared has been very informative, by the way. Just in general, approving this type of program, we have a lot of questions that we need to look at for all the providers that are able to serve our state for things like that. What about the gaps? What about the employment opportunities afterwards? I think it's a lot of digging before we get to the point of approving something like this for Texas, because we internally as an agency, we have to know, and Melissa, you probably already know this. I'm looking at Melissa Tran, she's like, I know. We have to know ourselves.
Well, I also want to know how much resources, how many staff hours
absolutely
is it
before we even get to the point of approval.
Are we going to have one staff or one or two dedicated to this if we have a lot of providers that are wanting to come into the state? I think
we have to look at scalability. We have to look at quality control, which I'm sure your company has already handled all of those things. But I'm saying broader for the practicum providers as a whole.
Right.
What are they doing to make sure it's scalable for our Texans? What are we doing to make sure quality is being checked on all of the programs? Just because I'm looking at this as an educational program, not one provider or two providers, but are we going to offer this as an educational program for our Texans? And to do that, we've got a lot of digging, I think, to see where our gaps are and see how to best fill those.
Yeah, my concerns are we spend a ton of resources on it and it nets us 32 appraisers,
Right.
or that they aren't filling a gap of need.
Right.
That we approve it because Melissa's program is so amazing, and so we go, she's got all this handled, and then we apply the same scrutiny to the next, and or we miss things because we, like she said, I make them take the training, and that's not even required. That's just my own requirement. And so we assume everyone's going to have an amazing program that is doing the right things as opposed to just trying to make the money. And then we approve a program that is a complete failure and that produces appraisers that are, not up to par. That's my, and now we have all these appraisers that we didn't do the right thing. That's my biggest
Starting
concern.
first, maybe with just a really good needs analysis for the state of
Needs
Texas.
analysis.
Is
I
where
like
we
that.
start
A
with
needs
this whole
analysis.
thing.
Both
And then
from appraiser standpoint and, I guess we could ask banks, but I don't know that they would.
Just for, And I think starting there then gives us the knowledge we need to know what to even look for in a practitioner or a provider for this type of service. I think right now, without us knowing what our state needs, it's hard to even decide if we want to bring a particular provider on or the services on as a whole. We have to start first with assessing our needs and then go from there.
And you never want to, this is just something I would throw out to you. You never want to predict the future, because we'll go back to those two particular lending institutions that said to these particular two appraisers that were licensed, no, you're licensed. But when they saw the quality of how they were trained and when they saw the work product, immediately. So you may poll someone that says, no, we don't want licensed appraisers. And yet they would be the first one when they have a need, when a loan is to be made and there's no appraiser, they're looking for whoever's qualified. They're not just looking for a credential. They're looking for who's qualified to perform that.
Does it seem impractical to expand a practicum program to get to certified residential?
It's not a far reach. It's just a longer program. Okay, that's really all it is. To be absolutely truthful, it's just another additional 500 hours. The practicum, the current one, can be expanded to bring straight to certified residential. It can be. It's just additional hours. It's just an additional fee, of course, for the individual that's taking it. Now, is that what I really want to do right now and what I'm presenting to you? No.
Okay.
I would say to you that what I have right now, I know it works, and my folks are working. They're working. No one's calling me. I'll give you an easy example. A lending institution out of Arkansas called me and said, I want one of your folks. I'm looking to hire. They were starting at $75,000 plus benefits. They wanted one of my certified folks straight out the gate. I know how you teach. That's what I want. I had a lending institution in New Orleans, the same thing. I need one, and in about 6 months, I want a second one. Now, I do not do job placement. I want to make that abundantly clear. But I give job opportunity. When someone contacts me, I will put that out to my folks that are newly licensed or about to be licensed, and I'll say, this is an opportunity. If you want their phone number, I'll pass it on to you. But I do not do job placement, okay? Several appraisal firms do the same thing. They come to me because they know what they're getting.
Okay, I think that we have the information that we need from you, Melissa. I have to say that when I started on this board in September of 2019, and so I went to my first Aero meeting in DC in October of 2019, and I heard your name, and I heard that Mississippi was doing this, and I had no frame of reference or context to even understand what that meant. So when you said that this all kind of started in 2019, I thought, well, that's why, because it was sort of this new thing. And I just remember everybody being very excited about it, and that all the work that you had done to get to that point. And so I certainly appreciate, I think that this is the best type of model, is the continuity in the education, but also the hands-on experience. I think it sort of brings from both of the other ends.
It marries the two.
Yes.
It just marries the two.
You know, when you
beautifully.
said talking about roof types, it's like I'm a reviewer, and the amount of times that I see, you know, people call things that they're not, and I just think, you know, there's obviously a gap in education there, and so that sort of thing is what really makes me excited about this kind of program. So I think it's definitely something that we want to explore, especially to serve the rural parts of our state. So I think we have the information. I don't know, you know, I'd open it up to you all to decide whether or not we want to direct staff to create the approval process, or if we're still in the deciding phase of information gathering.
I think we are in the information gathering stage. I am very excited you came, because I've heard of the program, me being a representative of the community. I was aware of it, but the level of detail you provided was very helpful. So I appreciate that very much. I think it may be a good option to consider for our state, but I definitely think we're still in the information gathering stage, because I want to make sure we're looking at the needs of the state and then the providers as a whole that offer this type of service, to be able to choose the best provider or providers for our Texans.
Yeah, and I think that additional information will help us to decide how much resources, you know, maybe we decide that this is an area that we want to devote a lot of resources to, so that we can make it available to any providers and facilitate that. I think that we might find that, especially when you look at all the counties that have zero appraisers
Well,
in the state of Texas.
can I say something? Because I want to make certain that I did not give you an incorrect impression. The individual student pays their tuition to this. This is not something that a state picks up the tab for. The individual student pays their own tuition. I would like to say in closing, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to stand before you. Thank you for taking the time to just listen to what has already happened, what is successful, and I hope that you would look at this as how can it be successful for Texans? Because once again, not having appraiser capacity, as you well stated before I came up here, can undermine the economic stability of your state. Not having appraiser capacity, and you see how your numbers are dwindling. I can attest to the hundreds of aspiring appraisers that you have out there. Let's open the door wide to them.
Absolutely.
Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Good explanation.
I'm sorry we didn't have better weather for you.
It's okay.
Is it hot in Mississippi?
My plane ride, golly.
Oh,
I did this, and I said, well, it's an opportunity to pray.
Welcome to Texas,
I
right?
made
yeah,
it.
welcome to Texas.
Okay?
Thank you,
And a
Melissa.
skilled pilot.
Thank you. Yeah, again, to sort of piggyback on that, you know, when we know that if our community goes underserved, that what happens is they lower the standards for appraisers. They start taking away education hours and requirements, and so that's not good for any of us. They don't just, you know, make do. They expand the tent.
And try to meet the need, lower the bar, which we don't
exactly.
want.
Again, on sort of along those same lines, again, when we talk about serving our rural communities, if we get them to licensure, the only way from there to get to certified is having a supervisor, right? Which again is a no. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
It just, is that captured? I just want to make sure the viewers are able to hear that. Would that be captured?
I'll just
The
repeat
additional
what-
500?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just repeat what she said. So once you become licensed, you can work and gain the extra 500 hours under your own authority.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay. Because the whole time I was thinking, yeah, good luck trying to find a supervisor in Alpine, Texas, I mean, to get that next bump up. Okay, that makes me think very differently about that.
Can we look at, I know we have a November workshop coming up, and I know we're going to talk about the agenda, any added items, but while I'm thinking about it, it would be helpful maybe to do, if we're going to consider this as a board, bring in practitioners to do just what you did, Melissa, and kind of walk us through, and especially for the new board members that's coming on, that may be helpful.
Okay, so I think that from our standpoint, our concern is staff and agency resources in approving
True.
these.
Before we even get to that point, maybe.
But I'm also, because I thought Mississippi was the only state that had it, and again, I had heard about it in 2019, and I thought, and I sort of understood that it was a big deal at that time, so I assumed that it was a lot of staff resources to get it. So if 7 states have done it with much smaller appraiser boards, then I'm kind of maybe I'm overthinking what the resources are from a staff perspective on getting this done. But my worry is that we approve something that is not quality.
So I've just been making a list of all of the questions that y'all have. So it sounds like
Lots of ideas.
we want a needs analysis to include a survey to AMCs of the areas of need that they have. Ask AMCs whether licensed residential would fill that gap. And then where in Texas do we need providers? So that'll probably be analysis of how many appraisers we have in each county. And then how other states did it. What did they look at when they were approving? How did the other 7 states review the program?
Yeah. Because again, I think if it was just Melissa's program, then you already see that that's been successful. So that seems easy to approve. But if we're going to approve it for her, we have to approve it for other people. And so we want to make sure our infrastructure.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. It's an educational program to offer Texans as opposed to
Just approving this.
one.
Right.
Yeah, so I think
Who clearly has.
it's a bigger conversation, I think, so that we can gather the appropriate information to make that decision. But I don't think that has to take a long time by any means. If it works for our Texans, we need to look at moving it along with the information. I know Melissa Tran's on top of it.
Yeah, and I do hate to wait until November workshop to
that's-
continue
yeah,
to move
we
the
can-
ball. So perhaps the education committee can revisit this. And I know that's probably not enough time for you to gather all of that information, but I want to make sure that we just continue to keep the ball rolling so that we can get to a place where we approve staff creating the approval process.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for coming, Melissa, and thanks for coordinating.
Yes,
This was
thank you.
very, very helpful, very informative. Thank you.
We are making note that Ms. Reed Lynch is leaving, having given previous notice. Safe travels back. We are on agenda item number 11.
Morning, Madam Chair, board members. Kathleen Santos, General Counsel. So agenda item number 11, and I will say agenda item number 12 also are recommended rule amendments that would have, worked with the approval process that Director Tran had laid out. And so I can still go ahead and let you know what all is entailed with these. And so that'll kind of continue the conversation and inform, that approval process moving forward. So discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 TAC sections 153.1 and 153.15. This would add practicum courses in our definitions. And then 153.15 would also kind of lay out the practicum courses as something that could be accepted as experience. And then also there was an addition yesterday of new material that laid out like what would someone need to submit to the board for us to accept practicum courses. And so, I understand there's still this continued discussion. If you were to accept it, our staff's recommendations would be to authorize staff on behalf of the board to present these amendments for publication in the Texas Register along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal.
So if we didn't recommend that staff move forward with creating an approval process, then does it still make sense for us to add these to the definitions? I mean, that seems
Well, I think the prudent best approach would have your process sort of go in line with the rules. And so if there is still some questions about what that process would look like or whether or not you're going to approve it, I think we need to do the rules and the process at the same time.
Okay.
So for me, I've kind of changed what I was going to lay out for you all. So this
Okay.
is more what all it would take for rule-wise to be amended to kind of marry that procedure of approving a practicum course program.
Okay.
Because the AQB already has practical courses anyway.
Right.
So
Right, like
they
I
already
can't,
have their definition.
yeah, I can't imagine adding a definition of practicum courses is problematic, but I think you're right. Let's do it all at the same time. Once we know we're going to do this, then let's attack all these rules so that takes care of, that would be 11. So we're going to put
11 is
11
the-
on carry forward agenda, 12 also.
12 also would be the new rules that would be a part of that new program.
Okay.
So
Okay, so
I
those would
kind
be
of
carried
put
forward.
these, grouped them together so it was kind of easier to discuss in this way. But
And then 13 and 14 aren't to do with practicum. Okay. Very good. Okay. So I think with board agreement that we will table those and revisit 11 and 12 at a future meeting. Yes. Very good. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 13. This is on page 64 in our materials.
Okay, item 13, discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, sections 153.13, education required for licensing, 153.18, appraiser continuing education, 153.23, inactive status, and 153.40, approval of continuing education providers and courses. And so some of this is, or 153 is under quadrennial rule review, so there's some cleanup there. And then some of the amendments here are to conform requirements outlined by the AQB. If you recall, about maybe a year and a half ago, the AQB approved changes to the criteria that takes effect on January 1st, 2026. And those really relate to, they've changed the name of course titles. They've changed a little bit of the hourly requirement of a minimum course. There's certain courses now that are less than what the prior minimum, which was 15 hours, used to be. And then also it also takes into account specified subject matter that will be required for continuing and qualifying education beginning January 1st. And so this change would, I know how we like to keep our rules a little bit like we don't have to go in and mess with our rules as soon as it's effective. This language would take care of it presently and also when that change finally happens. And so, and you'll also see amendments in there that's made as a result of our licensing management system. With the new system, users are going to be able to submit their information using our online process rather than submitting a paper form. And so the rule language is clarified here to reflect this change. And you'll see it as, we're streamlining the language as using a process acceptable to the board. And this, again, is also a change we're making on the TREC side because it's same system and being consistent in that way of how people are submitting things to us. And so staff's recommendation is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 153 as presented for publication and public comment to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal. And I'm available for any questions we have.
Any questions? If not, I will hear a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Bolton.
I move that the board approve the staff's recommendation as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bolton and a second by Dr. Robinson. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I will say on that, I want to make sure on our website, when someone says, how do I become a Texas appraiser? And they go to this, they don't look at our rules, right? There's something else. But so just the ambiguity of, unless the AQB allows for a different duration, I want to make sure that they have the resources to find that. So when we say 15 or whatever the AQB says, they go, who is the AQB and where would I find that information? So I just want to make sure that happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. Agenda item number 14. This is on page 73 in our materials.
Item 14, discussion and possible action to propose amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code. And these sections are from Chapter 153 and 159, and they're listed more specifically in your materials and on the agenda under item 14. So again, we are under rule review for Chapter 153, so these changes are being made following rule review. And again, as a result of the agency's license management system project. This again is that same change of using a process acceptable to the board. And again, this is a change we're mirroring on the TREC side. The staff's recommendations is to authorize staff on behalf of this board to submit amendments to 22 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 153 and 159, as presented for publication and public comment to the Texas Register, along with any technical or non-substantive changes as required for proposal. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Santos? If not, I will hear a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve staff's recommendations.
We have a motion by Dr. Robinson and a second by Ms. Escalante Castillo. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. This takes us to pending business, agenda item number 15. Are we done?
Oh, you will see me again. I'm here for item 15.
Agenda item number 15, update regarding legislative matters. And I don't see Ms. Mandel here, so I assume that that's you, Ms. Santos.
That is me. Normally you'd be hearing from Summer Mandel, our Government and Strategic Communications Director, but unfortunately she's at home ill.
Okay.
But she is healthy enough to have provided me with talking points for this item, so thank you.
I thought she might be walking the halls of the
Probably
Capitol.
watching
at this-
too. I'll try to make her proud. So just to kind of provide you with some background, I'm stealing some statistics she's used. So 10,735 bills were filed thus far this session. Of those, we are tracking 453 of those, and that includes things that are pertinent to TREC and things pertinent to the board. That's going to include our board initiatives bill, but it also includes bills that affect all state agencies. Those would be sort of like human resource related bills or procurement, public information, open meetings. As far as our housekeeping bill, it's making its way through the legislature. The House version, which is HB 3250, passed and was engrossed on May 2nd. On May 5th, HB 3250 was referred to the Senate Committee on Senate Business and Commerce. Although there is a Senate companion, that's SB 1735, the Senate's going to be moving the House version through its chambers. And with that, we feel fairly confident that it'll make its way through. And if it does pass, those changes that will go into effect on September 1st would be expanding that option for a licensed appraiser to be a primary contact for all communications between the board and an AMC. We would clarify that an AMC may not have a controlling person with a probation, suspension, or revocation. And then we have some cleanup language updating the title of commissioner to executive director. That's in 1104. And then we would be modifying our administrative penalties statute 1104 and 1102 to mirror that of the appraiser. So that would require penalties to be paid into general revenue fund to mirror that change that happened in 2019 on the appraiser side. And then it would provide some rulemaking authority for the board to adopt rules to administer a stipend program to award funds to aspiring appraisers or certified appraisers serving in that supervisory appraiser capacity. And then also a subtle change with how we collect business contact information to potentially be able to display that. So for our next meeting, that by the time we meet, session will be over and we'll probably be in the middle of more implementation. And practically what that means is we'll be updating our policies and procedures. There could be some bills that pass that require emergency rulemaking, and that's where it would go into effect sooner than our typical rulemaking process. And so you may see some rulemaking, some emergency rulemaking going on at the same time, running concurrently with that standard rulemaking process, so that we're covered and everything's in effect that should be. So important dates coming up, sine die, June 2nd, that's the last day of session. And then yesterday was a deadline that passed. The House was the last day that the House can consider a second reading of a bill and joint resolution. So what that means is if a bill hasn't progressed up to that point, it's not going to continue for this session. And that's all I have for, and I'll try to answer any questions or let Summer know what questions.
Do we have any questions? Thank you. And thank you to Ms. Mandel for getting that to us while she was sick. Agenda item number 16 is the report on the Spring Aero Conference. I believe Mr. Bolton and Dr. Robinson both attended this virtual conference. And if you have anything you'd like to tell us about that?
I think the biggest takeaway that I took from the conference was that Kevin Smith from Fannie Mae, a representative, said that, and this is something that we need to contemplate, I feel like, is that the tips that they send us, we as the state agency can consider whether they are a complaint or not. And so I think that's something that warrants discussion.
Interesting.
Very good. I know that we've, rolled that around in the past, so I certainly would expect enforcement to continue to dig into that. Dr. Robinson, did you have anything you wanted to update us on for Aero?
Nothing in particular at this time.
Very good. Well, I certainly appreciate you both attending it. And of course, in the fall, there is the opportunity. Do we have a date for the Fall Aero Conference? And that one is in person, and it used to always be in DC, and now they do it at different places. And so I would encourage any board members that would like to attend. It's always just a myriad of topics that I think help expand our understanding and even things that you didn't know you needed to know. So I think it's a good opportunity.
It looks like it is between October 4 and 8, and it's in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
One other thing I do want to say is that and I wish I remember the name, but I believe it's one of the ASC representatives. He discussed quite a bit about all the changes that they see coming, and which kind of gives you pause a little bit, like, wait, what? So that's something that I think as a board we need to pay particular attention to, what's coming up, because I think there's going to be some things.
Did he elaborate on
Well, talking
We don't need
about,
appraisers
I mean, everything from qualifications changing to talking about federal licensure to no longer federal oversight, just let states do it. And so these are things that they're talking about at high levels. And so I just think we need to be ready for something coming down the pipe.
Ear to the streets, huh?
stay flexible? That's what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. Agenda item number 19 is discussion and possible action regarding possible topics for the November workshop. So even if we have done, made some headway on practicum courses, that might be a good topic, especially as the new members come on, so they can catch up. I like the idea of that.
I'd be interested in a kind of, because we have new members coming on board, to give, basically from FIREA to today, and what we do and what each of the divisions do and why they do it. I don't think it has to be exhaustive, but just give them a sense of what all of this is.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. The one when we started, I thought was really good. We came on at the right time. So 6 years ago, whatever we did then would be good for the newbies, because it was very helpful, especially from the community side of things and not being an appraiser.
And they're not going to know, I'm guessing, what the ASC is, what the foundation
The
is.
acronyms? Oh my goodness! I'm just now knowing them after 6 years.
ASB.
No, that's
I
true.
mean,
It's the fundamental, basic stuff,
Yep.
But yeah,
What is use tax?
yeah.
And maybe also, as we have committee meetings in the coming months, to also just keep that on the agenda for the committee meetings, possible topics for workshop. Agenda item number 20, a discussion and possible action regarding agenda items for future meetings. I definitely would like to see practicum stay up on there.
That's a good one.
Anything else to add to our running list? Okay, agenda item number 21, discussion and possible action to schedule future meeting dates. So our next meeting date is August 8th, 2025, and I did reach out to the two new members, pending new members, and to see if they had conflicts, and I didn't hear that, they didn't say that they did. For those dates also, I gave them the November workshop and meeting dates as well. So does anybody here have any conflicts, or can we solidify the November 13th workshop and November 14th board meeting? Hearing none, we will move on to tentatively setting the February board meeting. So the two Fridays that we would probably look out there would be the 20th or the 27th. Does staff have a preference for those dates? No. I would just, if there's nothing, then I would just recommend the 27th, because that gives us a little longer to do committee meetings in between. So we will tentatively set the date for February 27th for that meeting. And it brings us to the close. What time is it? 11:24. Not our, oh, yes, ma'am.
If I may, I'll make it extremely brief.
Would you mind coming to the mic so that the folks that are watching us can hear you? Thank you.
Thank you for this. There were two things that, listening to discussion after I did the presentation, there's two questions I'd like to answer for you that just may assist you going forward. Number one, just know that the students do not meet every week. Every week, they are not required to drive to a central location, okay? These are sporadic times that they have a calendar. I provide a calendar. So it is not every week that they are meeting, okay? The second thing I wanted to make clear was you discussed, if we approve your practicum, we don't want to have to approve someone else's. Remember, the state has the authority to approve a practicum, but it's coursework that you're approving. It's not Melissa Bond you're approving, but you're approving me as a provider. The same way, if I put forth a CE class and you would approve Melissa Bond's CE class according to the criteria you have set for CE. The same way with the practicum, you're going to have your criteria set for the practicum, and then you're going to say, okay, Melissa, you submit your practicum. Does it align with what we are wanting? That's how you would approve those. So I just wanted to make that clear, just in case I didn't. Certainly not wanting to govern what your state does, because you do a great job, and I know that your Texans appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that I said my farewells in November, but I close today's meeting with certainty that I will not be back on this dais. I just want to say again that I'm proud of the work that my fellow board members and agency staff have done together over the last 6 years. I know that this organization will continue to thrive in capable hands. I have no worries about that whatsoever. I just wish all of you the best. I will be watching from afar and trying not to email you or weigh in on anything. So it is with a heart full of gratitude. The time is 11:27 that I adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.